very good. Looking, they possibly will finish with their only the third losing season in the last 25 or 24 years, I believe, this year, if they cannot at least salvage a 500 season this year. But we'll talk about all of those things. Sports Call today brought to you by Always Money. Always Money offers title loans, cash advance loans, Western Union services, and they buy your gold. Visit one of their many convenient locations or visit them on the web at alwaysmoney.com. Always Money. Easy, convenient, friendly, and fast. Be sure to check us out on our Facebook page or just send us a tweet at SportsCallAU. Of course, we'll take your predictions all this week. Auburn takes on Louisiana Tech this weekend for homecoming. Where the tiebreaker is passing yards for Jeremy Johnson. Hoping to see him play a lot in that game. You'd like to see the first team rest at halftime, the game be well in hand. But first of all, let's talk about the suspension today that was announced just a couple of hours ago of the Mississippi State center, Dylan Day. This happened. There was some question maybe that he had stomped on two LSU players purposefully. The SEC has reviewed the tape, come back, and given him a one-game suspension. He will not play against Texas A&M. Mississippi State, of course, has the off week this week, but then they'll take on Texas A&M and follow that up with a home game against Auburn as well. Randy, just your first impressions. Did you see the play? Was it intentional, do you believe? Is the one-game suspension warranted?
I think it's warranted, and yes, I thought it was intentional. And when you watch Dylan Day, I think that this is not the first time that he's had a flagrant foul called on him. The SEC says multiple flagrant and unsportsmanlike acts versus LSU. Not only that, I think last year am I right? Was he suspended the game against Auburn last year?
He either was suspended for the game or was suspended because he stepped on an Auburn player. I can't remember one, but it happened one or the other.
That's the only reason I remember his name. But he is suspended one game by the SEC. So I think that is a part of this story that maybe we need to talk a little bit more about, because the NFL and all that they are going through, I think that it would help the SEC, especially in college athletics, to make a determination when you do certain things, certain criteria, that you are suspended X amount of games, and take it a little bit more away from the team. Watch Jameis Winston this past weekend and all the things that he has gone through. I don't know what you thought, but when I saw Jimbo Fisher talking about him, made my stomach turn. Just watching him on the sideline, I hate to say that because he's a kid from this state. I know he left and went out of state, but, I still want to cheer for him, still want him to do well, because he did. He's a homegrown talent here in the state of Alabama, but boy, I think if you did a poll here in the state of Alabama on how many are disgusted with Jameis Winston at this point, I think that would be in the higher 90s, and only 10% you'd find somebody around Birmingham or the Hueytown area that would be positive. But what are your thoughts? I mean, I see where the SEC comes in and gives them a game suspension here. I think that needs to happen more than not, and take it away from the team, the athletic director, and the coach to make a determination on what suspension is.
Well, first of all, I was a little surprised when this first came out and heard the immediate reaction after it. Some people were saying, well, you can't really determine intent. Of course you can. If you watch the play, of course he stepped on him on purpose. He tried to stomp him through him. You've got a 300-pound man that put every ounce of that weight into the stomach of two guys. He didn't just do it once, he did it twice. So absolutely he did. Of course you can determine intent looking at that video. He did it on purpose. There's no doubt about that. Should he have been suspended? Yes. I thought one game sounds about right. It's not, people say, well, that's a dirty play. There's no place for that. And that's probably true. But you talk about you want your team to be as physical as they possibly can be. And watching that game for 3 quarters, and we'll talk about that game much more as we go along, Mississippi State was so much more physical than LSU, and that hasn't happened in a long time. And they were they were passing the licks. They were dominating the line of scrimmage. They were running over the LSU defenders. They were laying the licks to the LSU running back. So everything, and I think he just got caught up in that a little bit. Does that make him a bad guy that he made a dirty play? Well, is Nick Fairley a bad guy? I'm not sure. You won't, as much as we talk about it, as you might have to come out and condemn these kind of things, you want guys that kind of tread that line on your team. I wanted Nick Fairley on my team. I love the way that he treaded that line. He did cross over it a few times, and that's, maybe he should have been suspended a game or two here or there, but we'll take that and move on. I think it's about right.
Well, it's a good point. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401, and we've talked a bit about that game. I'll throw our question of the day out there now because it remains, I think a lot of you out there are going to call in and say Mississippi State with this, but which Power 5 team has most impressed you so far this season? Mississippi State maybe not the most impressive, but their win this past weekend, you've got to tip the hat. And you and I, before the program started, and you can call in now and give us those teams that have impressed you the most. And I'm sure if there are any Alabama fans riding up and down the road, they're super impressed with what they saw with their team this past weekend. But we're looking over across the way, and I've got the schedules for both Auburn and Alabama. And just thinking coming into the program, before the season started, we knew the Western Division was the toughest division in college football. We live down here. We understand it. In the state of Alabama, we played for multiple national championships in a row, won a whole bunch of them in the last several years. So we get it. But it may be tougher 4 weeks into the season than we thought to start the season, because I don't think any of us thought Texas A&M was going to be what they were. I don't think any of us really thought Mississippi State was going to go on the road to LSU and beat them. At least I didn't. So that makes Mississippi State at least equal with LSU. We always know LSU's got the athletes to beat you any Saturday night. Ole Miss looks maybe better than I thought they would be at the first of the year, at least as good. So, Andy, what are your thoughts? Western Division looks better than I thought going into the season.
Well, yeah, this is the problem playing in the SEC West. You came into the season and you thought, well, South Carolina's going to be outstanding. I picked them to win the East back at SEC Media Days. You looked at, like you said, LSU. You knew they were going to be young, but you knew they were going to be ultra talented. Well, it looks like South Carolina is, at best, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You look at LSU, they look young and they look very inexperienced, and they don't look near as intimidating defensively as they have in the past. However, unfortunately, all you have done is raise the level of other teams that are in the West. Mississippi State looks better than you once thought. Ole Miss looks a little better than you thought. Certainly, Texas A&M looks a lot better than you thought coming into the season. So it really hasn't changed any. As far as Auburn, the difficulty of Auburn's schedule, they're going to have to go on a gauntlet here after Louisiana Tech. I hope they enjoy homecoming, because it's rough from here on out, and there's only really one game out, that's sandwiched in between Georgia and Alabama that's going to give them any kind of relief. So, and it's just one right after the other. Going to, LSU coming in at home and then having to go on the road to play Mississippi State. That's a very, I said at the beginning of the season, that one scared me. Right now, it probably scares me even a little bit more.
Good points. Let's go back to the phone line. Shadow in Auburn, you're on Sports Call.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I want to say that I don't believe that you can judge intent. Now, I know, based on what you saw him do, it did look intentional. But when referees call helmet to helmet, you going to tell me they can judge intent on that?
Well, going head-to-head, trying to make a tackle, everybody is trying to make a tackle in pretty much the same way. Your helmet's going to get involved in one way or another. Stomping on another person as you go by, that seems to be a little bit easier, in my opinion, to judge, plus the fact that he did it twice during the game, and he did it last year.
I agree with what you said. Did they call the guy for a penalty during the game?
No.
Well, when in the history of college football has this been done?
Good question, Shadow. I mean, I see what you're saying is you can go back.
Well, see, a lot of people out there want to say that, we do it the right way and it's done honestly. But this, along with other things like schedules and other things that I could mention, but I just won't take the time right now, I believe it is an intent to control who wins and who loses. I don't know how many more things are going to have to be done for other people maybe to change their mind. But that's you know, if it was so egregious, and it was, I saw it, but I don't know, no penalty during the game, but then to come back and to make this decision, it something doesn't seem right about that. But thank you.
Thank you for the call, Shad. I can think about some things maybe, that happened in the NFL at times where, upon further review, they go back and look at something to see who threw a punch. This guy didn't get called for it, but it got suspended a little later, or something happened at the bottom of the pile. Somebody grabbed something they shouldn't have. It's not caught because the referees can't see it. Just because they didn't see it doesn't mean it wasn't a penalty. But upon further review with video evidence, they are fined or whatever, some sort of penalty is levied against them. It's an interesting point. I get where you're going with it, and I know that Mississippi State fans will probably say the same thing because he's suspended for the Texas A&M game, and you're losing your center. Now that's an 11 a.m. game, Texas A&M Mississippi State. That's trouble brewing already. An early game like that with Texas A&M at home, now you lose your center. We all know how important Reese Smukes is to Auburn. This guy, much the same to Mississippi State.
Well, I agree with that, and it's the same at least type of offense when you've got a quarterback back there that is doing a lot of the damage with his legs. And with Dak Prescott, and boy, he's been everything that he was touted to be and more to me because he's that power runner. He is a 230, 240-pound guy that's in the Tim Tebow model that Dan Mullen likes so much, that can run between the tackles, can make plays. But the difference between him and Tebow to me is he can take it the distance. He went 65 yards against LSU Saturday night, and that was the difference maker. But I think even more than that in the storyline, how in the world did LSU get back in this thing? Mississippi State, as you look closing out the football game, Andy, I turned it off. I moved on from it.
I did too.
And next thing I know, it's so super close. I'm looking through Twitter and I'm seeing Mississippi State's about to be Mississippi State, and LSU's about to upset them again. From what's it been, 29 years since LSU's lost a game at home to Mississippi State. But I think that's the biggest story. They get over the hump. They go there. They pick up a win. Now what does Mississippi State do?
Yeah, Dan Mullen and Mississippi State don't know how to win yet. They're not comfortable with it because they hadn't done it enough. They don't know how to close teams out. But maybe that'll come. We said, I think me and Brett were talking about this Saturday on the Countdown show. Is Mississippi State going to go from a pretender to a contender? Are they going to finally step up to the plate and play a game that they're capable of playing and beat an LSU team that may not be the best LSU team in the last several years? They did that. Now, it wasn't ugly at the end, but it was a dominating performance for 3 quarters. The last of that, Brandon Harris came in. He got hot. He should have been playing all along, obviously. Anthony Jennings is not an SEC quarterback, but they do have some talent at the wide receiver position, and you're going to see LSU probably move and try to exploit that, as the games go by. We're going to go ahead and take our first break here on the Tuesday edition of Sports Call. We'd love for you to be a part of the program. Give us a call on the Auburn Opelika Tourism Hotline at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 or locally at 334-887-3401. More Sports Call to come, presented by Always Money. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of Sports Call. Andy Graham and Randy Lee here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401 on our AO Tourism hotline. We talked a lot about our question of the day was who impressed you the most, or who has impressed you the most this season so far. And I think that team would probably be coming from the SEC. But, Randy, we haven't done the show together in several days, and even before Auburn played Kansas State. I never really got your thoughts on Auburn's victory over Kansas State. It was the first time that we actually saw Auburn struggle offensively I guess, since the Mississippi State game of the third game of the season last year. And it was a little disconcerting not to see us be able to run the ball.
Well, it was a concern to see the way that they stopped us running the football and some of the things that they threw at us. Of course, when you look back to the football game, and if you're an Auburn fan like we are and you're glass half full, you're looking through rose-colored glasses. We dropped a bunch of passes. We had a bunch of missed opportunities down the field throwing the football. But it is concerning with the offensive line and the way that they handled some of the setups that Kansas State had. Was watching some film study, taking a look at this Kansas State and some of the things that they did from a defensive perspective, and pulling up that safety and creeping him up to the line of scrimmage. I guess confusing Nick Marshall and making some tackles from the backside, which is what they were able to do. He's a very good open field tackler, and they made some tackles a yard or two once we got into the line of scrimmage, but we weren't able to manhandle them, and they were undersized. But maybe that's a move that you'll see going to. Able to move around a little bit, splits a little bit different. But I guess that is the concerning thing. When you run for 2.8 yards per carry, you're held to as few as we are. And so far this season, I don't know what it is, but just me, Nick Marshall hasn't gotten off yet. He just does not look the same as what I saw last year.
No, there's no doubt about it. The whole offense was out of sync against Kansas State, and Nick has really been out of sync running the read option all season long. And he made some bad reads against Kansas State, and the offensive line didn't block. It was not their best performance. The receivers, when we did have opportunities, a lot of times dropped passes. Nick was, Sammy Coates was open twice on deep balls. He didn't give him an opportunity to catch it either time. Those are the kind of things that really can't happen. And this offense is predicated on rhythm. And if we can't get a rhythm going, then we end up looking dysfunctional. And just thank goodness the defense played one of its better games in the last 3 years.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Let's go back to the phone lines. Ed and Tuskegee, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good, Ed. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I just was telling you, I'm actually a Bama fan, and I've been listening to y'all's show for, 10, 15 times. My job has me passing through. And I just want to tell you, I think y'all do a really good job. I think y'all, I haven't heard, more than 30 or 45 minutes at a time, but it really sounds like a good, objective show. A lot of screaming and yelling and stuff. And I just want to tell you, good luck to you, and I hope y'all continue doing well.
Well, Ed, thank you so much. We appreciate that. You like to hear it. Sometimes you don't, but you like to hear some positive feedback out there. And, look, I'd like your thoughts, Ed. You had to have been thrilled at what you saw Saturday from Alabama. We may have lost Ed there, but it's a good time to segue in.
Man makes a compliment, he gets out. That's okay.
Your kind of guy.
Absolutely. That's good. We appreciate it. That was a good compliment.
Let's finish talking about Auburn, and we'll hit Alabama because it was impressive no matter how you spin it, the way that Blake Sims threw the football around and what in the world that Amari Cooper is. I don't even know where to begin there. But throwing the football, I still thought our receivers, Duke Williams he's a man-child out there. He is an Amari Cooper type. He seems to get open whenever he wants. If you need, a 10 or 12-yard pattern, he's the size, he's the frame, he's able to bring it in. Did have one drop that would have been a touchdown, of course. Like to have had that one back. But we targeted him quite a bit. And haven't had to have Sammy Coates. He dropped several balls this past Thursday night, but haven't needed him to be the main key out there at receiver. Still a lot of talent. lot of potential. Thrilled that we got away with a victory. But you do have to sit here on programs like this and point out some of the deficiencies that you hope that we get corrected.
Oh, yeah. When you look at that game, there's so much that Auburn can improve on in so many areas that they need to improve on. Number one, the special teams was not good against Kansas State. That's something that we talked about that we've kind of taken for granted. Let's just go back to the phone line.
Yeah, quickly, and Ed is back. Ed, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys, I just want to tell you you're doing a great job. I don't know if I accidentally got cut off or what I did, but a lot to keep up the good work.
All right, thank you, buddy. Did you have a comment on the Alabama game from this past Saturday?
Well, it's hard to tell. You really don't know what Florida's got. It's just hard to tell. I guess I was kind of impressed with Sims. I think I don't know if he's gotten a lot better since the first game. You got to root for a kid that stuck around 5 years and is kind of succeeding. You got a second for a quick story?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just got to tell you, Fraser, I was talking to my son about something. He's 15 years old. He's a typical teenager, and something came up, and I was telling him about Philip Lutzenkirchen, or is it Kirchen or Kirkin? I'm not sure how you say it, but I was telling him about him, and of course, in his smart alecky way, in the middle of the conversation, he said, you don't know him. What are you telling me that you don't know anything about him? I said, son, I'll tell you one thing about him. If the Alabama and the Auburn fan base both like you, you're pretty special.
That's exactly right. And Blake Sims is headed that direction after some of the things he's doing out on the field and off the field with the bracelet that he wore for the cancer survivor.
What was that?
You want to give the story there, Andy?
There was a cancer patient. I believe she was a student at Auburn, or is a student at Auburn. She had a posting on Facebook or Twitter or something, and Blake Sims wore a bracelet in her honor, and Sammy Coates did as well. But just for him to do something like that for a girl that he doesn't know, but he saw her story and it touched him, so he wanted to do something about it. And the fact that she's a student at Auburn, he said, is irrelevant.
Well, that's good. It's about time people really start looking at things objectively. And, I don't know why there's so many people out there think that if the other team loses, you win, or they got to tear down the other side when they achieve. And that's really gotten to a point where that's kind of old. And so it really is good to hear you guys doing what you're doing. And I'm not near Tuscaloosa, so I don't know what they're doing on radio up there, but hopefully there's some guys that are doing the same thing y'all are doing here.
Ed, thank you so much for your phone call. We appreciate it. Let's quickly go back to the phone line, get one more in during this segment. Patrick in Auburn, you're on Sports Call.
Gentlemen, thank you for taking my call. You were talking about Nick Marshall and being a little less efficient than last year, correct?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
One explanation is that some defensive coordinators have had a year's worth of football film to look at. If you do exactly the same thing that you did the year before, on offense I'm talking about, you're like, the odds are diminished that you're going to be quite as successful. You have a comment about that?
I think that's the worry. As us Auburn fans sit here and we're amazed with what we saw last year with Auburn going to, 70 to 80% run. Some games throw the ball around 6 or 8 times. It was almost like a skeleton drill. It was too easy. It was we were shocked. So, yes, I guess sitting here as Auburn fans, we were hoping that it would remain that easy the entire time Gus Malzahn is there. May not quite be, but it's going to be fun to watch.
Yes, it is. Thank you much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the phone call. I know we got Jason Caldwell up next. Maybe he can give us a little bit better insight, Andy.
Maybe so. And again, it's one game.
True.
It's one game. If South Carolina didn't teach us anything, it's that don't count too much into one game. They came back and played excellent against Georgia, and then they turn around and are in a dogfight with Vandy. So you just never know. This kind of season, it's just got to feel that this season is going to be week to week. They're going to be Oregon against Washington State. That game was in the fourth quarter. I mean, you cannot tell. I'm not worried about Auburn's running game. Let the team shut it down for 3 weeks in a row, then I'll worry. We're going to go ahead and take our mid-hour break here, but when we return, we'll be joined by Jason Caldwell from inside the Auburn Tigers to get an update on everything going on in Auburn Athletics. More Sports Call on the way, presented by Auburn Urgent Care.
496-0406.
Auburn Urgent Care, located on South College in Auburn and on Enterprise Drive at Opelika near Tigertown, offers convenient solutions to your health care and occupational medicine needs. We offer workman's compensation injury care, and we have a certified DOT medical examiner on staff. It's not about speed. It's about the quality of care. We're open 7 days a week, 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekends in Auburn, and 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday in Opelika. Walk-ins are welcome. Auburn Urgent Care. 334-821-3221 in Auburn or 334-749-9191 in Opelika. Visit us online at auburnurgentcare.com. Proud of our past, confident in our future. And for your primary health care needs, visit Family Health Clinic at 1456 Opelika Road in Auburn. 334-826-8951. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Tatum Lawn Care wants to help you add value and beauty to your home or business, and they want to save you money in the process. Tatum Lawn Care offers affordable lawn care and landscaping services to residents in the Lake Martin and surrounding areas. Services include tree maintenance, planting, pruning, hedging, blowing, mulching, leaf removal, spring and fall cleanups, and more. For an estimate, call Tatum Lawn Care at 256-329-6102. That's 256-329-6102.
The Southern Tales collection isn't just an expression of class, it's an Auburn way of life. Whether it's a long day on the lake with your closest friends or cheering for the best team in the SEC, we aim to provide comfortable, quality clothing fit for any occasion. God, family, and football are the three things we hold closest, and we hope to share these things through our product line with the people we love the most, our Auburn family. SouthernTalesCollection.com. Southern Tales, not just an expression of class, an Auburn way of life.
This segment of Sports Call is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Here's to a one-of-a-kind Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is a proud sponsor of the College Football Playoff. Dr. Pepper, always one of a kind.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of Sports Call. Andy Graham here with you for another hour and a half, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. We'll pick up your phone calls in the next segment, but right now we're going to go to the Auburn Opelika Tourism Hotline and welcome in our good friend Jason Caldwell from inside the Auburn Tigers. Jason, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Andy. How about you?
Doing pretty good. How was the trip out to Kansas?
It was a good trip. You know, obviously first time out to Manhattan, and it was a very neat college town. A little different, obviously, but you know, for the most part, it was a pretty enjoyable trip, and I had a chance to kind of, like I said, see kind of how Kansas State does it. But the facilities were nice. Everything about the trip, you know, turned out pretty good.
Hey, tell me a little bit about the campus. What's it like, and you know, the atmosphere that had such a build up to it. Did it live up to the hype?
Yeah, the atmosphere definitely lived up to the hype. It was a really good atmosphere. You know, not a big stadium, but the way it was made, you know, really held the sound pretty good. So it was a pretty good atmosphere. But the campus is really spread out. I mean, lots of room, you know, between buildings. You know, lots of green spaces, those kind of things, and you know, very unique, almost like a castle-like appearance to a lot of the older buildings on campus. So it was definitely a fun trip, and one I'm glad that Auburn you know, scheduled this one. Hopefully, we'll get to see some more of those schools that, you know, are not just you know, the same old opponents. I think it's fun to see different teams and different campuses and, you know, really different parts of the country.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Auburn, you know, struggles really, you know, honestly, they escape with their lives. They're out in Manhattan, 20-14. I think Rhett Lashley was quoted as saying that we didn't execute worth a crap. That pretty much kind of sums it up. There have been a lot of opinions about why that was. Why was Auburn not be able to run the ball? Did it have all to do with Kansas State? Did it have mostly to do with Auburn's just simple lack of execution? What was your estimation?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Obviously, you know, first you look at Kansas State, and they were determined to try to take away the running lanes, and when, you know, they did that by
by sending a lot of guys at the line of scrimmage, blitzing safeties, and as soon as the ball snapped on those kind of running downs, they were coming fast and hot. So that created some difficulties, but it's still a matter of execution. Gus Malzahn talked about it today that you got to be able to do those basic plays, and got to be able to execute those no matter what. And so I think that's part of it. And the other thing is that I think obviously you look and you got to slow those guys down, and to do that you throw some on first down and throw some earlier. So I think that's something too that Gus Malzahn and Red Lashley they're just going to have to, I think, kind of bite the bullet every once in a while and throw some. Auburn threw 31 passes, and only 5 of those were on first down. Last Thursday night. So got to be more flexible and throw some of those on early downs and back that defense off a little bit.
It was a pretty standard Nick Marshall performance. He was up and down, a little inconsistent at times, but when it mattered the most, he came up the biggest. A lot of varying opinions. It was a little odd to me. We did the show Friday, and so many people that next day were talking about it, and so many people. I heard so many people say that he had a bad performance, and I heard so many other people say he had a great performance. I don't think I heard so many differences of opinions about one game from the same guy. But what was your opinion? How did Nick Marshall play?
Yeah, what I've figured out is that the opinions varied wildly depending on if people were actually at the game or if they had to watch it on TV. I really think that was the biggest part of it. I think you're there. Obviously, there were a couple throws here or there, but it was far from only being Nick Marshall for the some of the problems in the passing game. A couple balls got tipped, but people at the moment go, well, that's quarterback's fault. He's not tall enough. Those kind of things. Well, come to find out that it was a protection issue. And once they got that fixed, everything was okay. Had several passes dropped, and he missed a couple too. So all in all, I thought it was fairly solid. Could have been much better, obviously, but I think all in all, it was far from the quarterback issue that was the only thing in the passing game. But like you said, when it came time to make plays, as he's done, for the last 2 years, Nick Marshall stepped up and made plays, and that's I think that's the biggest thing you talk about him is that he's done that when it's on the line and when he's got to do it. Nick Marshall delivers.
We've got Jason Caldwell here joining us this afternoon from inside the Auburn Tigers. Sammy Coates still is certainly not 100%. He played Thursday night and looked close, to himself, but you could tell he certainly is not at full speed yet. Looks to be maybe getting a little frustrated. How do they get him more involved, or is this going to be one of these nagging injuries that lasts for 6 more weeks, or is this something that he's going to get over pretty quickly here?
No, you look and, he might not be 100%, but when they throw you the football and you got a chance to make a play, then you got to make a play. That's in the end, that's what it's all about. And he had a couple of drops in the game, and those are things you can't do. For a quarterback, you're going to come back to guys, and Deke Williams dropped what would have been a sure touchdown as well, but when they came back to him, he made a play, and then they kept coming back to him. And that's, Sammy's got to step up his game now. I think that's the biggest thing right now. And a little banged up, and obviously that I think has impacted his play. But Auburn's got some playmakers. They got some guys that can do it. Ricardo Lewis made a big play the other night. Not to mention all the guys who aren't getting those opportunities. And right now, I think that's the key for Sammy. He's got to step up and make plays. When he gets that opportunity, especially.
Well, while the offense certainly struggled for maybe the first time in quite some time in the Gus Malzahn era, on the defensive side of the ball in the Ellis Johnson era, it might have been their finest performance.
It was a very solid performance. It starts with the running game, and this defense has really come on since the first half of that Arkansas game, and stopping the run and being physical up front, and just allowing 40 yards on 30 carries, shutting down Jake Waters and the quarterback runs. Those are things they had to do, and they didn't give up a big play. So those are the keys that you're looking for on defense. And I really think that you know, it was, like I said, it was one of the best performances we've seen in the last couple of years from an Auburn defense. Couldn't have come at a better time. And I think it gives them a lot of confidence heading into the rest of this season because they've seen different types of offenses. I mean, obviously Arkansas was power running, San Jose State spread it out a little bit, and then Kansas State was a little different, quarterback runs, and he threw the ball really well. So they've gotten a taste of you know, a little bit of everything so far. But big confidence booster for that defense, and I think it's going to really pay dividends down the road.
Joshua Holsey named the SEC Defensive Player of the Week. Jermaine Whitehead obviously does not make the trip. He is thrust into that role in midweek or maybe 2 days before the actual game. But he comes up, you know, big for Auburn, leads the team in tackles, I believe. Just a great performance by him. Talk about his value to this team.
Yeah, you know, we talked about coming into the season that one of probably the biggest things about this secondary was flexibility and versatility, and that's really the strength of the defense. And, you know, it's shown up again. Josh Holsey had to make that move that, you know, that we saw, you know, Ryan White have to make last year, where you get a couple of days of practice and you're ready to go. But the good thing is that Josh had already played safety. He was very familiar with the position, you know, a guy that played safety in high school. So he had a pretty good idea already in this defense. And he did have to flip and play a different spot, but because he knows the defense, he's comfortable with the calls, all those things, he's able him just to really slide right in there. And I think he brings a different dynamic to that defense. He's a guy that really closes well, finishes in the running game. And then you look at Rudy Ford. Rudy Ford really played well back there as well. So, you know, not the two safeties that maybe people might have thought coming into the season, but two guys that got the job done both tonight.
Yeah, I definitely like Rudy Ford back there. The more I see him, his closing speed is very impressive. Two other guys that really impressed me, and you know, if you would have asked at the beginning of the season which freshman was going to make the biggest impact, I'm not sure many people would have said Nick Ruffin, but he looks very comfortable out on the field as a true freshman.
Nick is just a football player. I mean, that's what he is, and you know, he kind of jumps right in there. He's already making calls and doing some things on defense, and that's not normal for a freshman. So I think, and then what he does too is, you know, he's got cornerback skills. You can put him in there in that 6 defensive back set and have him lock on an inside wide receiver and feel good about it. And I think that's a positive for Auburn, especially when you look down the line. You know, this weekend against Louisiana Tech, but when you start talking about Texas A&M and some of the teams down the road that are going to throw and spread it out from, having a guy like that in the slot is going to be really important. And then, you know, I think probably where you're headed, another guy, Trevon Reedy. Trevon really impressive in his move. He does a great job man coverage, and he's getting more physical. So you know, all in all, it's hard to probably be proud of a secondary than that another night because they had some chances and some really good receivers. They chose to try to take away Tyler Lockett and not give up a big play, and that's what they were able to do.
Yeah, you start thinking about, you look at this defense, the third down and longs that they gave up, the third down conversions that they gave up in general. If they cut down on those, I'm not sure Kansas State would have had a lot more than 200 total yards. Jason, just kind of bring us up to date on what's going on inside the Auburn Tigers right now.
Yeah, you can take us out. Obviously, still a lot of talk, you know, kind of coming back from Kansas State. Thoughts today and video from Gus Malzahn, defensive story, recruiting story on the local product as well, and then continuing previewing heading into Louisiana Tech this weekend.
All right, that sounds good. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Jason Caldwell from Inside the Auburn Tigers. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more Sports Call right after this.
Resource Natural Spring Water. Resource is 100% natural spring water with naturally occurring electrolytes that support a lifestyle of well-being. When you need to refresh, revitalize, and replenish, it's always Resource Natural Spring Water.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of Sports Call on the first day of autumn, September the 23rd. Andy Graham and Randy Lee here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401 on our AO Tourism hotline. Just caught up with Jason Caldwell. Of course, we have Jason Caldwell from Inside the Auburn Tigers on every Tuesday. We have Brian Matthews from auburnsports.com on every Thursday. They do a great job keeping us up to date, giving you everything that's in the news and up to date with Auburn. They do a great job. Both those sites are certainly popular sites to the Auburn people and provide a great service as well.
Let me say, I read an article that Jason put out today. It's on Tallahassee running back Brandon Baines. Have you heard about this?
No.
5 games in, he's got 1,357 yards rushing. He had 380 yards rushing this past Friday night with touchdown runs ranging from 59 to 76 yards. And it was 4 of them. And they scored 31 points. So I can give you, and I think he may have kicked the field goal also. But
this is against the defense you've seen, too. This wasn't
This is Central of Clay County. I don't care. Central of Clay County's always got a great football tradition. They teach. They live and breathe football there. Is it one of their better teams? Probably not. But still, 380 yards with touchdown runs from 59 to 76. I saw earlier this year, he's about 5'9", 190 pounds. If you watch him out on the field, he looks like a spark plug out there. When he gets in the secondary, write it up. Just go ahead and say, okay, he's in the secondary. That one's over. I can go ahead and decide where they started to play from. 4th nationally rushing, 12.5 yards a carry, 1357 5 games in. I've been around and seen some great running backs. I don't know if I've ever seen any put up numbers like this so far.
He'll be a good one from somebody. I hope somebody in Division I gives him a good look because I'd love to see him in person. I hope, maybe I'll get a chance sometime this season. But he plays for Tallahassee, correct?
Yeah, plays for Tallahassee.
That if you get a chance out there, if you're in the Tallahassee area or Tallahassee's playing near your area, get out and see this kid in person because he is turning a lot of heads this year.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Love to hear from you out there. Haven't talked much about it, as we don't on this program, but we will here. And I don't care how you spin it. Blake Sims looked pretty good this past Saturday, and Amari Cooper looked better than good, as he has all season long. He's put his name right up there, if not at the top of the list for the Heisman Trophy. He's right up there in the discussion. One of the top 2 or 3 players with Marcus Mariota. I'd say he and Marcus Mariota 1 and 2 right now in the Heisman Trophy. Let's quickly go to the phone lines. We come back, I'd like to get your thoughts on Alabama this past weekend. Let me start up. We got a couple of calls. Luke in Alex City, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys. How are y'all today?
Good, Luke. How are you?
Well, I'm doing a lot better after this past weekend. I mean, certainly Alabama fans wanted to know that Blake Sims could carry the load, and my goodness, he really did. In fact, just today, they revised the stats because they had erroneously given Blake Sims a huge loss on that fumble that was kind of Keystone Cop-ish and credited him with a big loss. Well, now they've gone back and done the correct thing and given him those yards back. I mean, it was still a loss on the play, but he doesn't get the entire loss. So now Blake Sims is the owner of the most yards from scrimmage in Alabama history, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, it was an outstanding game. And, look, Amari Cooper, Luke, up against, got to get one more phone call in. I appreciate you calling in for Alabama, but quickly, Amari Cooper's got to be right there at the top of the list for the Heisman right now. We lost. Sorry about that, Luke. Let me quickly go back to the phone lines. Terry, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, did y'all happen to catch the press conference today? Gus Malzahn, our Tiger Talk Monday night.
No, I didn't catch that. We had Jason Caldwell on the previous segment talk a little bit about it, but what struck you, Terry?
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead. Do I have any time? Do I have much time or not?
Yeah, you got about 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I've been one of those that, when I watch the games, I've been wanting them to, put Jeremy Johnson in there 2 or 3 series. You know what I'm saying? And Danny Cannell was on the radio station this morning, and he was saying, he thought that the offense would run so much better if Jeremy Johnson was the quarterback. The reason I'm saying all that is because I've been have an urgency to or a tendency to want that to happen too, just to see how it would go. But the reason I brought those two up is because then when I listen to Gus, he always has this calming effect on me. And he said, to the casual eye, things looked a certain way, but he said, when I watch the film, y'all don't get to see all that, right?
That's right. Yeah, and
he said it's the whole offense. He said, y'all don't see where people aren't where they're supposed to be, where people aren't making blocks they're supposed to make, and all this. He said he's our quarterback, and he's a winner. He's won many, many games for us. And if Gus is happy with it, I gotta be happy with it too.
Terry, thanks so much for the phone call.
More Sports Call to come right after this.
Ford Road, 334-290-1992. Visit us online at ReinhardtPrattville.com. Reinhardt Prattville. We sell to sell again.
You better buckle your seatbelts because it's going to be a show to watch.
From Tiger Communications.
Jackson! Touchdown!
For 20 years, East Alabama's sports talk leader.
Swing and drive! Mountain right!
SportsCall.
Oh, what a dunk!
Call in now at 887-3401 locally.
Right through, he got it!
Or 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free.
Struck him out!
And now, coming to you live from the loveliest village on the plains. SportsCall.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second hour of Sports Call on this beautiful September the 23rd, the first day of autumn. We appreciate everyone out there joining us this afternoon. Andy Graham, alongside Randy Lee, will be with you for another hour, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401 on our AO Tourism Hotline. We would love for you to be a part of the program. Sports Call today is actually brought to you by Auburn Urgent Care. Auburn Urgent Care offers convenient solutions for your health care and occupational medicine needs, including workman's compensation, injury care, and certified DOT medical examinations. With locations on South College and in Tigertown, visit them online at auburnurgentcare.com. We had Jason Caldwell on in the first hour talking a lot about his trip out to Manhattan, Kansas, Auburn defeating Kansas State 20-14. Again, we talked about it in the first hour, the first time that we've really seen the Auburn offense struggle in quite some time. A little disconcerting. We've become so accustomed to just 300-yard rushing games like they're nothing. It's a mundane night to run for 230. But we've all been a little spoiled in that area. We knew that the offensive line would probably not be quite as dominant as last year's. It could still get there. They need to gel a little bit more. They need to play a little bit better. And last year's offensive line got better and better. Last year's team got better and better and better with each game, progressive game. Did Auburn get better? They may have in some ways. The defense certainly I thought got better. But moving forward, it's homecoming week at Auburn. They'll take on La Tech. They need to put up some big numbers and feel good about themselves before they take on LSU.
And I truly expect that they will, but I don't think we talked near enough, and I know that you and Jason did, but I didn't talk about the defense quite as much as I should. And the defense, I think the beauty of what you're seeing so far is stopping the run, finding a way to stop the run. And I will say exactly what Jason said when I watched that game. I love Trevon Reed in coverage. I think he's physical. I think he provides a physical presence on bump coverage that helps the entire defense out. Because if there's one issue that I see defensively, it's getting a pass rush with the front four. I think Auburn and Ellis Johnson's dialed up a bunch of different blitzes and has caused some disruption in the backfield, but it's mainly coming from others. It's not coming from that defensive front, and that's a little worrisome.
It is, and that's true. We just cannot seem to get pressure against a decent team with the front four. Now, we did against San Jose State right up the middle, and it seems like Montravius Adams looks like a five-star world beater one week, and the next week he just looks like an average defensive lineman. He needs to be more consistent. Maybe, he needs to have one of those, performances like Nick Fairley had where he comes out and really dominates, and it just kind of turns the light on for him, and he understands he needs to dominate on every single series. Like you said, I just believe we're going to have to blitz. I just don't think there's any doubt about it. Chris Frost is good coming off the edge. Justin Garrett did well coming off the edge in the blitz. So I just think that's just going to be what Auburn has to do, especially on third down.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Which Power 5 team has been the most impressive for you so far? I don't think you and I have given our answer. Who's impressed you the most here the early part of the season, Andy?
Right now, after Saturday, I'm going to say Alabama. I thought that the defense played. First of all, just let me say, Florida's no good. They're not good. Jeff Driscoll is what we call in the business a miss. Okay, he may have five-star measurables, but he has two-star talent as far as the quarterback is concerned. He's not a good quarterback. Florida, they've got big problems. I think that kind of goes without saying. Will Muschamp is supposed to be the defensive guru. They were lost in the secondary so many times. Blake Sims, who played outstanding, I'm not taking anything away from him, but he had 180 yards passing on 2 plays and easy throws. Now, he knows how to put some air under the ball, give his guy a chance to catch the ball when he's wide open. He did that. That's something that a lot of quarterbacks maybe have some trouble doing. So the more I see Blake Sims, the more I'm very impressed with him. And why there was ever any question about who the starter would be, I'm not sure I know.
888-9 Tiger 9 334-887-3401. I'm going to throw another one. I'm going to, of course, we're just keeping Auburn out of this because we're all wearing our Auburn glasses. We still think that even though it was a tough game, we did get a victory. So look, Andy and I are still very, very hopeful that Auburn ends up in that Final Four. But I'm going to put another team that I'm really impressed with so far, and I think we'll know a little bit more about them physically this Saturday's Texas A&M. Kenny Hill looks great. Texas A&M, for the most part, is outstanding. Kevin Sumlin has really turned my head. I told our good friend Scott Hardy, who's getting ready for our next program, he's been a big Kevin Sumlin fan for a long time, and I said, let's wait and see what Texas A&M does the year after Johnny Manziel leaves and all of his glory. And the year after he leaves, I'm more concerned to play them now than I've ever been. I think that offensively they're scary, and that's the type of offense that gives an Alabama trouble. And so far, South Carolina they couldn't do anything with it. What can Arkansas do? And, hey, is Arkansas going to ever turn the corner? It was a good win for them this past Saturday, Andy. This would be a statement game. They played Auburn outstanding the first half. Jeremy Johnson put on a show throwing the ball, but they ran the football and put 21 points on the board. We found some corrections. We stopped them in the second half. So I think we'll know a lot more about both teams this Saturday.
Yeah, Kevin Sumlin, you're exactly right. It's the same way I felt. I think a lot of people had felt, when he was at Houston, he had Case Keenum. When he was, then he just inherited Johnny Manziel. And we keep saying, well, he keeps falling into these quarterbacks. Maybe it's not the quarterbacks. Maybe finally we're going to have to say it's him. It's his system. Quarterbacks just succeed in that system. It is so quarterback friendly, and their numbers are just eye-popping. I think that what I need to find out about Texas A&M is their defense.
True.
And we'll find out that Saturday because Arkansas knows who they are now. They're 4 games into the season. They know that they are going to run the ball 75% of the time. And they've got the horses to do it.
I think they do, too.
They got an offensive line that's built to do this. It's massive. And they've got big backs, and they can run, and they've got some, a couple of decent receivers when they have to throw every now and then just to keep people honest. The Texas A&M is going to score. But can Arkansas keep the ball away from them, ball control, keep, time of possession, and score points in most possessions just by these grueling 12, 13-play drives? That's going to be interesting to see.
888-9 Tiger 9 334-887-3401. Our question of the day: which Power 5 team has most impressed you so far this season? Call in. Let us know your thoughts there. We've talked a bit about Alabama. We've touched on this Mississippi State LSU game. We have yet to talk about Florida State and Clemson. Oh, man, if you want to say Mississippi State almost Mississippi Stated that game Saturday, Clemson went on ahead and full-blown Clemsoned that game Saturday night. If as many of you out there are turned off by Jameis Winston as I am at this point, watching his antics on the sideline and watching and hearing all that he has gone through, I was cheering as loud as I could for Clemson, also with the disgust that I left the Rose Bowl 13 seconds later this past year from a national championship. But your thoughts Saturday night in that ball game?
Well, if only they'd have showed him a few times. I was wondering what his reaction would be. But look, ESPN is to blame. ABC is to blame. He should not have been at the game. Now, there was a debate before the game on game day, and the old guys, Mac Brown and Lee Corso, said he should be at home. He shouldn't even be at the stadium. Some of the young guys said, no, that he should be there. He should. All this. And, I understand both attitudes, but the truth is, and it turns out, he should have stayed home because all the focus was on him. They panned to him after every single play. to get his reaction. The kid comes out in full pads. Jimbo Fisher comes out and says, "Well, it's a miscommunication."
How was that a miscommunication, honestly?
Did you see the look on Fisher's face?
He just looked completely disgusted. Let's quickly go to the phone lines. I know we'll go a minute or two over on this segment, but that'll be okay. Ed from Auburn, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys. In addition to the teams that y'all have mentioned, Oklahoma also has looked impressive. That running back, what is it? He's got a funny name, Reaver or something like that. He's definitely looked like as good as Gurley, if not better. But if Muschamp leaves, do y'all think? Leaves if he gets run off. I don't see many people hiring him right now. Because defense is his forte, and even somebody that's needing a defensive coordinator is going to look at him and say, "Well, goodness, because Florida does have some talent." And as far as Sumlin, isn't Texas A&M about to expand their stadium? And don't you think he could pull a Nick Saban and say, "If I want a waterfall in the locker room or whatever"? He's in a pretty good, and Texas A&M loaded with money. What are your thoughts on that? And then I wanted to mention something about Florida State and Auburn.
Yeah, I think Kevin Sumlin's in a great I think what did Spurrier say? He's the best negotiator in the SEC. He right now I think he can get anything he wants if he beats Arkansas and he goes in and beats Mississippi State. No doubt if he wins the West this year, that will only go up. They've invested quite a bit, like you said, in the new stadium. But I think he's in a fantastic position right now. His offense scores points. Now, like we said, can we see has their defense improved? That'll be the question mark. What was the first part of that question?
It was just a question about facilities.
I was wondering if y'all thought if Muschamp got run off, if he would wind up somewhere, or would he be kind of in limbo for a couple of years? I could not understand why Florida would keep him at this point.
I tell you this, Ed. Noel Mazzoni continued to get jobs as an offensive coordinator, and he was terrible. And he's always been terrible. And he's been terrible everywhere he's been, but he keeps continuing to get jobs. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind Will Muschamp would get a defensive coordinator job probably the day after he gets fired, or certainly the next year. I know that's just my opinion, but I certainly believe that would happen.
Okay. And real quick, two things. On Auburn, yes, I'm like everybody else, still a little bit concerned about our offensive line, definitely our pass rush. You can't complain about the defense overall, but pass rush, when we get to a really good passing team, you just cannot leave any quarterback there, back there that long. And, I'm not sure why we haven't seen, Kenyon and some other players getting a chance. And Trey Williams, I'd love to see him getting in a little bit more, and Rock Thomas and Barber. Maybe we'll see all of those guys a little bit this weekend. But on the Florida State thing, I think somebody said, I'm not sure if it was one of y'all or a caller, to blame ABC or ESPN or whoever was broadcasting. But I blame Jimbo Fisher, and I don't know if y'all have heard this, but there's the scuttlebutt out of Tallahassee is that the AD wants Winston gone from the team, and Fisher's saying no way. But how do you not, if you've got that kind of a problem child, how do you not sit him down and talk to him and let him know before the game that, hey, we're going to miss you at the game, but, you sit at home and think about what happened. And how does it get to the point to where his uniform is hanging in the locker room for him? To me, it comes back to Jimbo Fisher. And I somebody's got to take some responsibility besides Jameis, because he definitely is not going to take any responsibility. And I just think that I don't know if y'all have heard that. I think the guy's name, the athletic director down there anyway, is there's rumors that he and Jimbo are butting heads about Jameis, and I just don't see how, if you're the head coach, that he gets out on the field and then comes back out on the field, even undressed, or without pads, not undressed, but after what he said, it wouldn't surprise me if that happened. But I blame a lot of it on Jimbo Fisher, that he he needs to be more sitting down and talking with that young man. That there should have been no doubt about whether or not he was to show up, on the sidelines. And I do not think him being on the sidelines and getting shown 40 whatever many times did Florida State any good, as far as like moms and pops sitting back and, they're recruiting their son and they're saying, well, you're saying you're going to take care of him, but look what this idiot's doing, and y'all aren't doing anything. But anyway.
Thank you for the call, Ed. We're way late here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. We'll be back with more Sports Call presented by Auburn Urgent Care right after this. to the Tuesday edition of Sports Call. Andy and Randy here with you for another 30 minutes, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free or locally at 334-887-3401 on our AO Tourism hotline. Proud to have them as a sponsor now with us. A lot of great sponsors here on Sports Call. We appreciate all of their support. Could not do this show without them.
888-9-TIGER-9. Again, as you call in, we've got a question of the day. Power 5 conference, which teams have been the most impressive to you so far early in the season? A couple of the teams that have been brought up. Got a lot of good Auburn fans out there that feel strongly about Auburn. Mississippi State's been brought up. Alabama's been brought up. Oklahoma has been brought up. Oregon has yet to be brought up. I think all of us are a little skeptical when it comes to Oregon still. Not quite as skeptical when it comes to Oklahoma because we have seen them take on an SEC team and physically be able to at least impose their will. Last year they did against Alabama. You think that's the difference between Oregon and Oklahoma right now, Andy?
How can you be impressed with Oregon over, say, an Auburn team when, to me, the close win over Washington State is far worse than the close win over Kansas State for Auburn? You look at that game, the numbers were very close. It wasn't like Washington or Oregon went out and turned the ball over 5 times or something, and that was the reason it was close. They just, Washington State played them off their feet. Is Washington State a good team? No. Kansas State's a lot better, in my opinion. Auburn went on the road. So, I think a lot of people are looking at Auburn and saying, we don't know about them because of that. Well, I got a lot of questions about Oregon now.
Let's quick hit around the country. And, Andy, this is an interesting story to me. I'm just now reading about it. I've heard about it the last couple of days, but just now sitting down to really check out the specifics on this. But if you haven't heard yet, trust me, not many of us still think too highly of Lane Kiffin. I don't care how many yards Amari Cooper catches and Blake Sims. They could break all of the offensive records known to man, and I still don't think very many people are going to think too highly of Lane Kiffin. I apologize. I think Alabama fans, at least the ones I know, they've turned over a new leaf with him, and they like him just fine now that he's on their side. But all the Alabama fans I knew hated Lane Kiffin just about as bad as any coach I can remember outside of the Tennessee fans. But former USC Trojan cornerback Brian Balkum is suing the school and former coach Lane Kiffin, alleging he was forced to play in a game while ill. A law firm representing Balkum said the suit was filed Monday in Los Angeles County Superior Court. Balkum claims he suffered cardiopulmonary damage and brain injury with neurocognitive deficits after he played against California at the Coliseum back in 2012. Balkum's lawsuit claims he was ill and dehydrated before the game, but was forced to play by Kiffin. USC and head coach Kiffin were clearly negligent and acted with conscious disregard for Brian's welfare and safety by forcing him to play. That came from his attorney. As I read that, some of your thoughts, Andy?
Well, this is pretty serious. He passed out in this game, had to be taken to the emergency room. They found out his brain was bleeding. This is a serious thing. He had suffered this brain injury. I fail to see how that maybe he was forced to play. I guess that he was ill, and if he voiced his opinion and said, I don't feel I'm up to playing, I'm not, I've had this problem this week, and Kiffin said, no, you're going to play. We need you out there. If it was, it's not like Kiffin picked him up and carried him onto the field. And so how do you prove that he was forced to play? Was it negligent? Maybe that's something. I don't know how, you hear about lawsuits like this from time to time, very rarely, to be honest with you, they ever make too much public knowledge, but this one seems to have a serious tone to it.
Let's quickly go to the phone lines. Jim from Montgomery, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, good afternoon, War Eagle guys.
Good to you.
Good show. Good show. Just one of the most impressive teams to me have been Alabama and Mississippi State, and certainly Texas A&M. But for some reason, that one is not as big a surprise as Mississippi State to me. But I just want to say the thing about USC and Florida State as well, nothing that is living on the disgusting side of human life surprises me coming out of USC. I mean, all the way from the way their AD acts, to the crap back in 2004, and all that. So who's surprised by anything out there? And in his unfortunate as 1983 was to Auburn, and as criminal as 2004 was, last year probably sickened me more than any when we didn't beat those guys at Florida State, because I knew what was coming was, a media love fest for our favorite thug. And thank gosh that guy didn't choose to come to Auburn. Thank gosh. And I agree with the earlier caller, and I can say it a lot quicker than he did. It is Jimbo Fisher. I mean, he is the head coach of that program, and all he cares about is putting up more W's. And he's pretty sickening himself, the way he acts and the way he just fawns over and makes excuses for how Jameis Winston acts. And give me a coach that, can instill some discipline in his team and not just continue to look the other way and make excuses for somebody who behaves like a Jameis Winston, who's just unfortunately a terribly immature, self-centered football player. But that's what you get with him and Jimbo Fisher. It's up to him to stop all that, and he doesn't. He just celebrates it and moves on. So all I can say is War Eagle, and I'll be pulling for whoever's playing Florida State next week. And I'd really like to see Alabama and Mississippi State continue to do well till they play us. I think that makes for a real good West. And you guys take care and enjoy the show. War Eagle. Bye, guys.
War Eagle to you, and great phone call, Jim. I couldn't said it better myself. And Brett Pritchard will be on air with Sports Blitz tonight from 7 to 9. You can tune that in right here on 95.9 in the Auburn-Opelika area. And I want to say, I know what he's going to say because I've seen many a tweet, but is Jimbo Fisher trying to convince the rest of us and himself that Jameis Winston's a pretty decent person? Because if you heard any of his press conferences, and he has really turned my buddy Brett's stomach on this, he's had enough of it. So I think the point that comes across. No one that watched outside of a Florida State fan Saturday night liked what they were seeing. You couldn't have, in my opinion, Andy.
No, that's why I say I think the whole thing was botched from the very beginning. I think Florida State did a poor job of it. Only suspending for a half to begin with. They finally come back and do the right thing. Then the ABC does the wrong thing by putting him on camera every 5 seconds. Florida State doesn't make him sit at home. That's another thing they do wrong. And then Jimbo Fisher comes out and defends him and says he's learned his lesson. It hit home, him sitting out that game. And I'm like you. I think he's maybe trying to convince himself more than he is anybody else, because the look on his face, again, if you saw that, you saw a guy that's just like, I am trying to help you, and at every turn you are making it more difficult.
Good points. Up against the break, Andy. I know we went a couple of minutes over here, but the remainder of the program's open for you, the caller, to call into the program today. Enjoyed having Jason Caldwell on in the first hour inside the Auburn Tigers at 4:30, but the phone lines are open for you, the caller.
Absolutely. More Sports Call to come, brought to you by Always Money.
Call is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Here's to a one-of-a-kind Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is a proud sponsor of the College Football Playoff. Dr. Pepper, always one of a kind.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of Sports Call. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free, or locally at 334-887-3401, our AO Tourism hotline. Obviously, Jameis Winston tends to light the phone lines up. We've had several calls about that game. We didn't really talk about the game, about Clemson just totally giving the game away at the end. Florida State throwing a bad interception, Clemson being at the 18-yard line, where basically all they have to – they did have field goal problems for most of the game, but all they have to do really is not fumble, not turn the ball over, and they would have won the game. Total, just Clemson being Clemson. And I guess that may be another point. At what point do you look at Dabo Swinney? Some people look at him and think, man, he's done a great job at Clemson, and some people look at him and say, we're never going to be any better than a 9-win team.
I'm just not sure about Florida State this year. And when I look at their rushing attack, that's where the biggest storyline is for me. Florida State ran for 13 yards Saturday night against Clemson. Now, Jameis Winston's a quarterback, and he's not Nick Marshall. He did make a couple of plays, unfortunately, in that national championship game with his legs, so he can move around a bit. But he's not 120, 140 yards per game rusher. Nick Marshall and Tim Tebow and Dak Prescott's not walking through the door at Florida State. So that does not correct their their rushing attack. And that's got to be skeptical this year. Maybe it's offensive line. I don't know enough about their team. I do know Carlos Williams does return, and he averages 4.5 yards a carry, but that's it. And they went backwards a majority of the time outside of that.
Florida State has been the least impressive of the top 10 teams to me, really, in every game that they've played. I haven't been impressed with them at all. Whether Jameis Winston has played or not, I just think that their defense is nowhere near as good as it was last year, especially in the defensive line. Their offense is just not near as potent. Last year, they were throwing for 400 yards a game and running for 200. But now it just seems like they're certainly not anywhere close to the team that they were last year. But their schedule is so easy that I think one of the callers asked, who do they play next? Does it matter? Look at their ACC schedule. It's like North Carolina, NC State, Wake. They're going to cruise through that season.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. You're just tuning in. Andy and I in the first segment said this, so I'd love your response out there as Auburn fans. Western Division we knew was the toughest division in college football, but after the start of the season and 4 to 5 weeks in, I think it's tougher now than I thought it was to start off the season, Andy. And I look down the rest of this schedule for Auburn. We got a squeaker, a breezer this weekend against Louisiana Tech, and then it starts up, and boy, it's rough. LSU, not overly concerning there in comparison to what I thought leading into the season. If Leonard Fournette ended up being the next Herschel Walker, which he was touted, I may be a little bit more worried, but I don't think Herschel Walker's walking in this year at least. But then it starts, and at Mississippi State's scarier than I thought to start the season. South Carolina still can jump up there. Ole Miss, scarier than I thought starting the season. Texas A&M, way ahead of where I started to start the season. So that's the thing I bring up. We knew it was going to be tough. We knew it was a top 10 schedule nationally, but it's even harder as the season progresses, I think.
Then, oh, by the way, you finished with Georgia and Alabama. A gift for you, the Auburn people. I think Gus Malzahn said it this week. It's probably the most difficult schedule in the country. And that's the problem. And I know a lot of people we've had this discussion about scheduling out of conference games. And in the future, if the SEC West is going to continue to be like this, it's just going to get better. Who's going to drop off? If the wars in recruiting and building these teams is just going to get more and more competitive, I think you probably do shy away from signing any out-of-conference games because it just comes to the point of being ridiculous.
Who gets fired first? That can be the question of the day that we'll kick off the program tomorrow. If Brady Hoke makes it through the season, I'm going to be shocked. This team, when they get beat, they get whooped. He's done a decent job recruiting. But, Andy, I never thought I'd see a Michigan program continue to dip into this neck of the woods. Ohio State still lingering around up there. At least we have a discussion year after year about Ohio State playing in a potential national championship or making it to the Final Four. But when's the last time we had that discussion on Michigan?
Yeah, long time. When Ohio State and Michigan were like 1 and 2, and that was late 90s. I mean, I get maybe it was early 2000s.
Maybe early 2000s, yeah.
That was the last time I think Michigan was any good at all. The Lloyd Carr era, he started, losing some traction. They weren't satisfied, and they fired him. That was probably the worst mistake they made because then you go out and hire Rich Rod, and that didn't work out, obviously. Brady Hoke comes in with Rich Rod's players.
It has a great first season. Yeah, it has a great first year, but it's been terrible since.
It has, and I think, look, he's been there this is his 4th year. Is he going to get fired or Will Muschamp? That's a preview of tomorrow's question of the day, who gets fired first. But, they turned the ball over 4 times against Notre Dame. The total yards in that game were it was like, 5 yards difference. It wasn't like Notre Dame just came in and ran up down the field on Michigan. Michigan cannot seem to turn the ball over. And, again, Devin Gardner is not a Division I quarterback. You cannot have a guy back. I mean, you cannot win in college football today with a mediocre quarterback. You can go 6-6, but if you want to win, if you want to, live up to the ideals of Michigan, you got to have somebody better than that. I got nothing against the kid. It's just some people are better than others. That's just a fact of the matter.
Look, our bread is buttered with college football in this state with our programming, but I think there are some interested participants when it comes to the Atlanta Braves, and you can talk about them a bit. I'll start with you. You're a big Braves fan. Did you think it was necessary to get rid of Frank Wren to move on to the next step in rebuilding a Braves program, I think?
Yes. I'll give you 3 reasons why. Dan Uggla, B.J. Upton, Kenshin Kawakami. 3 of the worst moves that, have been made, in baseball, really. B.J. Upton may turn out to be the worst acquisition, the worst all-season pickup in Major League history.
Since Mike Hampton.
I mean, well, at least Mike actually pitched and was decent one year. B.J. Upton comes in, and he 5 years, $75 million, Randy. Okay? He hit, I think, 180, 179 last year, 9 homers, like 26 RBIs. This year, I think he's going to end up hitting about 200. Well, he's better this year. And 11 homers and about 35 RBIs. I mean, that's your production at center field. The Braves have got a lot of problems. Now, I think Frank Wren, getting rid of Wren was the first good move that they made. They just need to start over. Wren had been with the organization for a while. He was handpicked successor to John Schuerholz. I understand that. Freddie Gonzalez, will he keep his job? That's a big question. Well, Bobby Cox comes out, and he is big time in his corner, and Bobby Cox is getting more and more involved in the administration, presidency, hierarchy of the Atlanta Braves. That's probably news that Freddie's going to be back.
Did you read into what Schuerholz said yesterday, though, that no, we have not spoken with Freddie Gonzalez over his contract or what we're planning to do in the future? To me, if you were positive you were going to ask him back, I would have not. I definitely wouldn't have said that. I would have said, no, Freddie's not. We're not making a move there. We're happy with what we're getting with our manager. He's been with us for quite a while. He's seen the Bobby Cox era. We know we want to build that back here with the Braves. So, but when I read into that, I think there at least leaves the door open to get rid of him.
Yeah, he has a division title in, the 4 years that he's been there. They did make the wild card, even if it was just a one game play in. But I think he might deserve another year or two. I'm not sure about that, but still, the Braves just got so many other. They got to get out from under some of these contracts that they've stupidly signed.
One more break here left on the program. Let me discuss you Braves fans real quickly as we close out this segment. B.J. Upton reminds Braves fans that the $46 million left on his contract are a sunk cost. That one's gone. I mean, we're still sitting there with that, Andy, and
$26 million for Uggla too. Well, this year and next. That's money you might as well take a match and light it on fire. More Sports Call to come right after this, presented by Always Money.
Resource Natural Spring Water. Resource is 100% natural spring water with naturally occurring electrolytes that support a lifestyle of well-being. When you need to refresh, revitalize, and replenish, it's always Resource Natural Spring Water.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the final segment of the Tuesday Sports Call. Andy and Randy here with you just for about 8 more minutes, taking your phone calls. Still time to get one last phone call in, 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401, the AO Tourism Hotline. Had a great show today, a lot of good calls, discussed a lot of college football, even a little Atlanta Braves. You let me rant. I appreciate that. Just give me 5 minutes to rant on the Braves every 3 weeks, and I'll be okay. But we want to close out the show today, talk about the NFL. Will the Ray Rice scandal saga ever end?
Not as long as they don't make some corrections, I think. And look, the unique part of this is the outcry from the fans as well as the media. Maybe more the media than the fans is the reason the NFL is backtracking here. Because first off, Baltimore didn't do anything. Baltimore was their whole goal, I believe, as an organization was to get him back on the field as quickly as possible, to run this one through whatever process it needed to run through, and then get him back out there. It's the only thing they cared about, and I think the fan base, the only thing they really cared about. Now, the problem with Roger Goodell, if you're in a leadership role like he is, you've got to demand to see any kind of film that's sitting out there. And it looked like he just didn't know too much about it. If he did know about it, and from what we're hearing, Ray Rice didn't necessarily lie to the. Does that make it worse? I hate to kind of keep going around, but as I'm talking, Ozzie Newsome comes out and says exactly what we saw in the videos, what Ray Rice told us. Well, what does that tell you about Baltimore and their organization as a whole, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, whether it should or should not have, I thought immediately after, I said, why does the video change anything? We knew exactly what happened. He carried the woman unconscious out of the elevator. What'd you think happened? You think he just leaned in to kiss her and accidentally headbutted her or something? I mean, we knew that he knocked her out. That's what he said. He knocked her out. I don't think Baltimore wanted to see the tape. I think they said, okay, this is bad. We're going to suspend you 2 games. In the NFL, they said this is bad. We're not really going to make an effort to see this tape like we could. And this would have all probably been avoided had they just actually gotten the tape and watched it beforehand, because that, whether it should have or not, that changed things dramatically for everybody involved, for the NFL, for the Baltimore Ravens, for the public at large.
And I think that's where the story is. And if Roger Goodell's going to do exactly what he did to the New Orleans Saints, if he's going to make an example of ones that he can't call ignorance, no, you can't plead ignorance around here. And he can't plead ignorance here, because the idea that he didn't ask for the tape or he didn't want to see it, that to me is bad enough. And the owners are doing what they're told to do, or not what they're told to do, but what their pockets tell them to do. Roger Goodell has done nothing but increase the revenue and increase the exposure to the NFL. So he's done what he's been paid to do, but this is a black eye. And I don't think until advertisers and big dollar advertisers pull out, I don't think you're gonna see anything happen here, really, Andy.
I think one good thing is certainly going to come from all this, and we see it every single day. It keeps being brought up. There are new twists and turns to the story. It seems like all the time, continually now, and there's this quest to find out who knew what when. We're never going to know that, I don't believe. But one good thing's going to come out. Look, domestic violence has been around since the beginning of time. I'm not sure Adam ever hit Eve, but Cain hit some woman sometime or another. The boy had a temper. So it's been around forever. It's going to be around. Human beings interact with each other in violent ways sometimes. And it shouldn't happen, but it does. This is going to shed a lot more light on it. People are going to pay a lot more attention to it. Certainly maybe it helps moving forward as far as the NFL is concerned, certainly. And sports has a way of framing society and making changes maybe when society's not really ready to make them, but sports kind of forces them to make it. So I think that's probably the good maybe that comes from this, whether Roger Goodell keeps his job in the end. And it's probably irrelevant.
888-9-TIGER-9-334-887-3401. I'll close it out there because I couldn't have said it as good as you just said it. You did find a positive to spin this. And, yes, hopefully they will make the necessary changes, and hopefully this implements a policy in a multi-billion-dollar operation to not say a videotape gets lost in the mail or it's sitting over on someone's desk. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, if your procedures allow that to happen, that's a major issue in itself, and I just have a hard time believing it, Andy.
We'll be back with you for Sports Call on Wednesday from 4 to 6. Randy and I will be back with you. We appreciate all of you. They called in today, all of you out there listening. For Randy Lee, I'm Andy Graham saying so long for now. We will talk again soon.
It's cool out. Yeah. I got me. Can't sleep. Not feeling good. It says 6114.
Yeah.